How's it going, everybody? It's Warren and welcome back to my channel, The Cosmic Wonder, where we talk about all things Marvel and everything relating to the MCU. And it seems like today we might be connecting the SPUMC, or the Sony Pictures Universe of Marvel characters, to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, specifically Venom and Venom in Spider-Man 3. And there's even a crazy rumor going around right now that Venom could possibly show up in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, right off the bat, when you hear that, you might think that that sounds pretty insane, but in this video later on, I'll explain how it might actually be possible. But first, we'll start off with a connection of Venom to Spider-Man and how Eddie Brock could be making his Marvel Cinematic Universe debut as Venom. It seems like Marvel and Sony were kind of hinting at this with the Morbius trailer that we saw, putting Michael Keaton's character, Vulture, that we saw in Spider-Man Homecoming, that exists in the MCU in the Morbius trailer, making him exist in the SPUMC. And now Marvel and Sony are playing very well with each other, so it seems like these two universes may be colliding in a very specific way, and we'll talk about all of this in this video. If you're new, be sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the latest MCU news, and so you can enter this week's giveaway for a chance to win a Mysterio Funko Pop. Just subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment below to enter. So the biggest question I think right now with Venom 2 and Spider-Man 3 are, is Spider-Man going to appear in Venom 2? And is Venom going to appear in Spider-Man 3? Now, it definitely seems like Marvel and Sony have a very specific plan, giving us Vulture in the Morbius trailer and putting a picture of Spider-Man in the Morbius trailer with the words murderer over it. This implies that these two universes do exist one within another, because at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, Spider-Man was pegged out to be a murderer and his identity as Peter Parker was revealed. And this makes it possible that Venom could actually make his way over to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, since he exists in the SPUMC and they're now seemingly combining. But how exactly would Venom make his debut in Spider-Man 3? Well, as it turns out, there's actually a really good theory about how this could happen out there right now. Here's one of the ways that Venom could enter Spider-Man 3, and it all has to do with J. Jonah Jameson. First of all, we know that J. Jonah Jameson is going to be in Morbius. We also know that he's going to be in Spider-Man 3 because he was also in Spider-Man Far From Home. So he is another character that exists in both universes. And he's the character that could connect Eddie Brock to Peter Parker, Venom to Spider-Man. And here, as far as I can tell, is the best and most logical way that Venom could appear in Spider-Man 3. The theory goes, with J. Jonah Jameson looking to fully bring Spider-Man down and now aware of the existence and talents of Eddie Brock, he could turn to him for help to successfully continue with his campaign against the young MCU hero. Jameson will need someone to find out more about Peter Parker, his backstory, the origin of Spider-Man, and all his missions, so he can paint him as the villain he's so convinced he is. And Eddie Brock could be the man he needs for such a mission. Eddie Brock will come to Jameson's attention thanks to Cletus Cassidy. The newspaper mentions his escape, and in the post-credit scene of Venom, Eddie was getting ready to interview him in jail. Cassidy's escape will inevitably bring attention to Eddie's interview, where Jameson will get an idea of his talents as a journalist and how he can help him with his anti-Spider-Man plans. And as Eddie will also know about Peter Parker thanks to Jameson's reveals, he will surely be interested in finding out more about him and his actions as Spider-Man. Though how honest Jameson will be with him about his true intentions of bringing the web-slinger down is unknown. And this theory comes from Screen Rant, so full credit to them, but let's talk about this for a second. This actually is quite a good way to bring Tom Hardy's Venom into the Marvel Cinematic Universe and into Spider-Man 3. It's basically saying that the events of Venom 2 will set up Venom to appear in Spider-Man 3. Because if we're being perfectly honest, Spider-Man probably won't appear in Venom 2 if Venom is going to appear in Spider-Man 3. We're either going to get Venom in Spider-Man 3 or Spider-Man in Venom 2. We're not going to get both. We'd love to see both happen, but unfortunately it probably won't. But this is a perfect setup for Eddie Brock to go to New York. He's a journalist, of course he's going to want a huge story, especially if he has an insider like J. Jonah Jameson, and of course he has the Venom symbiote. To Eddie Brock, that would give him an edge over any other reporter in the world, because he's going to be going after essentially a superhero, or to the public's eyes right now, a super villain. But after Eddie would find out about Spider-Man / Peter Parker, he would be fairly confident that him and Venom could take him down. So maybe not only could he get the story about Peter Parker and Spider-Man, but he could also be the one to catch him and bring him in. And obviously this would be extremely good for Eddie. And surprisingly, J. Jonah Jameson is going to be a very big character. It's very interesting that they brought him back. Specifically, they brought back J.K. Simmons, the original actor that played J. Jonah Jameson in the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. This implies that there could be some multiverse stuff happening here, but that's for another video. But he's done plenty of interviews and he said that he's already filmed a lot of scenes for other movies that he's playing J. Jonah Jameson in. And we know that he's going to exist in the SPUMC and the MCU at the same time, playing the same character. So he could very well be the key to combining these two universes and him reaching out to Eddie Brock, because Eddie Brock's going to have some fame to him because of Cletus Cassidy. So he'll reach out to him about Spider-Man, and perhaps this is how Venom is going to appear in Spider-Man 3. Now we're going to get into the Venom symbiote in the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 film, but first let me know what you think about that theory from Screen Rant in the comments down below. So about Venom in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, it's something that I think everybody would truly love to see. But we're not talking about a cameo from Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock, we're simply talking about just the Venom symbiote. It's a rumor that's been going around, unfortunately the source isn't that reputable, but it could very well happen because it happened in the comics and it happened in the animated series. And if they truly are bringing the two universes together, this would be something that would be truly great to see. Right now, the rumor has it that the Guardians of the Galaxy will travel to Clintar, the artificially created planet which is home to the symbiotes. According to the rumor, this sequence will be in flashback form and will take place before the timeline of Tom Hardy's Venom. So this will actually be before we see the symbiote on Earth and before we see the symbiote bond with Venom, but it will still be the Venom symbiote. Now, if we were to see this scene, it would take place in the past, but Guardians Volume 3 is not going to take place in the past. This would simply be a flashback or a scene that we see in the beginning of the movie, and then the narrative jumps to the future. Right now, there's been a lot of reports and rumors about what exactly we can expect to see in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And this by far is one of the most interesting rumors that we've heard so far, especially when you consider that most of the Guardians of the Galaxy in the comics have actually worn the Venom symbiote. In the comics, Rocket Raccoon has worn it, Drax has worn it, and even Groot. In the comics, they hook up with Flash Thompson, who is known as Agent Venom. And Flash Thompson and the rest of the Guardians of the Galaxy end up on Clintar because the Venom symbiote ends up taking over Drax. And when he takes over his body, he ends up piloting the ship to Clintar. And what happens is not really what you would expect. When they get to the homeworld of the symbiotes, Flash Thompson goes outside of the ship against Drax's warnings, and then the symbiotes actually take over him and use him to speak to the Guardians. The symbiotes say that they want to speak to the Guardians by temporarily bonding with them. Groot ends up accepting, and after Groot is bonded and is not harmed, the rest of the Guardians accept as well, and they are bonded with symbiotes. And from there, the Clintar tell the true story about the symbiotes. They say that the symbiotes are benevolent and seek to maintain peace across the galaxy by bonding to worthy hosts in order to create the ultimate noble warriors. However, for the full potential to be reached, the host must have a perfect blend of moral and physical ideals, something very few members of very few species possess. They then state that if the balance is not present, then the symbiotes become corrupted with bloodlust and turn into vicious monsters. And then these monsters become disconnected from the hive mind of the good symbiotes, but they continue to spread across the galaxy. They then explain that they are aware of Venom's activities on Earth, but they were unable to reach it until Flash joined the Guardians of the Galaxy. However, when they tried to reconnect the Venom symbiote to the hive mind, they found that its corruption was too great and it caused it to lash out in confusion and anger. And then it headed back to Earth. But they then said that the Clintar hive mind states that Flash has proven himself worthy of being the newly cleansed Venom symbiote's host, and that as a member of the hive mind, he will have access to new information and abilities, dubbing him an official agent of the cosmos and a warrior of the galaxy, protector of his homeworld against those who would do it harm. So it really is quite a very cool sequence that we would love to see happen in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, of course, just because it can happen doesn't mean that it will. Right now, it's just a rumor, and not a very strong one at that, but the fact that the SPUMC and the MCU are starting to kind of combine, and the fact that the Guardians do have a history with Clintar and the symbiotes means that this actually is possible now. But let me know what you think about this. Would you like to see the Guardians of the Galaxy visit the homeworld of the symbiotes in Guardians 3? And what do you think about Venom in Spider-Man 3? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you can stay up to date on all things related to the MCU and the SPUMC. For live updates, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.